Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Thank you for joining us today, Tuesday, May 14, 2024, for a press conference. We will begin with the Honorable Minister of Education reading a brief opening statement.
Good morning. I love it when they limit me brief. um, Good morning and thank you for coming. This is, I believe, an important part of our duty to provide education, reporting to you. We're sort of at a midterm place um, in the government, and we thought it was a good time to brief you and update you about what we have done, what we intend to do, what's happening currently in the ministry. And so, for that reason, it can't be brief. Sorry, Inara. Um, we came into government with a manifesto that was crafted, and it will be on the board for you, that was crafted through consultations with the citizenry of the country. So I don't know if you recall 2019, 2020, the PPP was literally hosting as a political party at that time in opposition, contesting the elections or intending to contest the 2020 elections. We hosted several consultations asking people and particular interest groups what it is they would like to see were we to uh, be able to secure their confidence and vote and enter into government. And they gave a list of things across sectors. Of course, this morning I will address only those relating to education. Um, and you will be able to see that on the screen behind you. As we crafted in the ministry our 5 year plan, it was, of course, with consideration of the things people had asked us for, where they said this would make their lives better in um, their delivery or their assistance in their to help their children deliver education. And so we broadly are going to look at access, quality. This is what our 5 year plan is made up of: access to education, quality education once in the classroom, and efficient monitoring and evaluation, or a more efficient system, and lifelong learning opportunities. And that actually ties in with the manifesto page that should be on the board. So let's talk about access. In nursery, um, our intention is we have achieved universal primary education. So says the United Nations when they were measuring our MDG progress, the Millennium Development Goals. And so we're left to achieve universal nursery education, universal secondary education. What does universal mean? It means all over. So all over Guyana, we want nursery age children to be able to access a nursery school. All over Guyana, we want secondary age children to be able to access secondary schools. And nursery education in Guyana is not compulsory as yet. We have not made it compulsory, but we have uh, registered the highest enrollment in the Commonwealth Caribbean at more than 85% of our nursery age cohort attending nursery schools. Where we have a gap would be where there are not enough schools, and that's mostly in the hinterland. This year, we are going to be building nursery schools across the country, and I'll give you those just now, and some primary schools as well as secondary schools. In Region 1, we're going to be building the Baramita Nursery, Falstop Nursery, Port Kaituma Nursery, Sheba, either building or extending. Sheba Primary, Kariako Nursery, Manawarin Nursery, Mabaruma Nursery. In Region 2, um, we don't have any new nurseries. In Region 3, Canal Number 1 Nursery, La Bagatelle Nursery. I understand this is almost finished. Parfait Harmony Nursery also. Region 4, May 26th Nursery. Region 5, number 8 Nursery, number and Hopetown Nursery. Region 6, Chesney, Albion Nursery, Viola Nursery. Like I said, we're either building or extending. Region 7, Itabali Nursery, 2 miles annex. Carrow Creek Nursery, Kako Nursery, Batavia Nursery, Camarang Nursery. Region 8, Monkey Mountain, Bamboo Creek, Kamana, Kaibarupai, Princeville, Bashville, Taruka, Maikwak, Kapanang, Chiangmouth in Region 8. In Region 9, Simone Nursery, Quatata Nursery, Apateri Nursery, Crashwater Nursery, Quemata Nursery, Rewa Nursery, Baitu Nursery, Karabikru Nursery, Katur Nursery, Parabara Nursery, Baishaizu Nursery, Taushida Nursery, Rupanau Nursery, and Region 10, Rockstone Nursery. Those are for nursery schools. For the primary schools that are going to be built, they are in Region 1, Baramita Primary, built or extended, Port Kaituma Primary, Kabora Primary, Region 2, Charity Primary, Little Diamond Primary. In Region 5, District 10 Primary. In Region 6, All Saints Primary, Sandvort Primary, Potaro Primary in Region 7. In Region 8, Paramakatoi Primary, Princeville Primary, Monkey Mountain Primary, Kuru, Kubaru Primary, Waipa Primary. In Region 9, Meriwau Primary. In Region 10, in Region 9, Kakrana Primary, Crikidnau Primary, and in Region 10, 58 Miles Primary and Wizrock Primary. And I forgot Tapachinga Primary in Region 9 also. And for secondary schools, new secondary schools in Region 1, we're building the Matthews Ridge construction of a school as well as teachers' quarters, Warramuri Primary. Currently in construction, we Quebana Primary, Matthews Ridge Secondary, and Warramuri Secondary. So that would be, that would be 5 new secondary schools in Region 1. In Region 2, you are aware that we did the Abram Zool Secondary already. We are going to also extend the Charity Secondary Annex at Kabakaburi, and this may very well become a small secondary school. 8th of May Secondary, Cotton Field Secondary. Um, in Region 3, we're going to be constructing a new school at Neems on the west bank of Demerara and somewhere around Vreed and Hoop Crane, depending on where we have land on the west coast of Demerara. That would be added to the Tushen Secondary School that is currently being constructed in Region 3. In Region 4, we're going to be building a new school at Caneville, a secondary school, at Suesdike Secondary, Golden Grove Secondary, at Bedford-Wacting PIC. We're extending Hope, Dora. We're building a brand new school at Prospect, as well as finishing off in Region 4, the new block at Annandale Secondary. In Region 5, we don't have any secondary schools to build, but we may have to look at transportation for the riverine children to get to the secondary schools. In Region 6, we are extending significantly the JC Chandy Singh Secondary, the Lower Quarantine, building a new school at Lower Quarantine Secondary and at Oriala Secondary, at Oriala and a secondary school. In Region 7, we're going to be building a new secondary school, the only secondary school of its kind at Philippi Village and at Jawala Village, as well as extend at DC Caesar Fox. In Region 8, we're going to be building a new secondary school at Kopinang, at Maikobi, and at Monkey Mountain. In Region 9, we're going to be building 5 new secondary schools at Napi Village, Mawaranao Village, Tapachinga, um, Masara, and uh, yes, that would be it in Region 9. And Region 10, the Christianberg Multilateral is going to be rebuilt, a brand new school. And there's going to be a school at Wairuni Secondary also, and Hururu Secondary in Georgetown. We are going to, as you know, schools that are currently going up are Christchurch, where St. Mary's used to be, and where St. George's used to be, as well as where North Rhymeveld is or used to be. We're also going to be extending significantly in Georgetown the Houston Secondary, Campbellville Secondary, extending or repairing, Cummings Lodge Secondary, Diamond Secondary, Tuckville Secondary, St. Joseph's High, St. Stanislaus, and yes, that brings us to the question of access for nursery, primary, and secondary. We have also established a significant number of, I believe it is 25 new classrooms for children with special education needs. That would be SEND children. And we are currently building the 6 new TVET centers at TVET would be technical and vocational education training at Mabaruma, Region 3, Region 4, Region 5, Region 9, and Bartica. And we hope to get those in shortly. In fact, the buildings are finished mostly, and we're waiting on equipment. Now, why is access important? Because I see people saying some commentary that building a school means nothing. But I would like to put that into perspective for you. First of all, in our manifesto, you would see when they get it up on the screen that that was one of the promises for a reason. Building a school allows children to go to school. Where there's no school, there's no place for children to go. So it's very easy for people to say, we could boast about all the schools we want. That doesn't mean education. Well, it does. To the people in the hinterland, if you don't have a school, you can't get a secondary education. Where we have primary tops, so I can tell you in a primary top is where you have a primary school and children are going to that school for their secondary education just because there's no other school to go to. And at grade 9, the school just stops because they can't write CSEC. They can't teach for the CXC courses. So in grade 9, the school stops and the children just go off to do nothing. Imagine that for a 14-year-old. That's what we're trying to turn around. Um, we have been able to close these primary tops: the Paradise Primary Top, Enterprise Primary Top, Enmore Primary Top, Luzignan and Annandale Primary Top. And on the highway, we closed Kurukururu Primary Top. That means all of those children are now able to access a full secondary education. On the West Coast, we closed Saraswat Primary Top and 7 more from riverine schools like Aliki, Great Truly, Saxakali, Karya, Upper and Lower Bonasika, Northern and Western Hog Island, Morishi and Fort Island, Lanabali, Santa, Mission, Sand Hills, La Harmony, Windsor Forest. In closing those primary tops, we allow those children and gave them the opportunity to get the education we have all said we wanted for them, and they had been unable to get before. In opening and building these new secondary schools that we just spoke about, we're going to be able to give children an opportunity to not only finish high school, but to get the opportunities to go on to tertiary education. And so I want you to understand why, for us, access is the beginning of education for many, many persons. In addition to building new schools, what we're doing currently is repairing schools. The president has made it clear that he does not want any school to be without functioning washrooms and plumbing, electricity, a good roof where there's no leaking, and uh, a dilapidated looking building. So, across the country right now, the Ministry of Education is attempting to go out and receive bids for the repairs of all schools, nursery, primary, and secondary, along those lines: washrooms, electricity, painting, roof, and um, to make sure that children are in a comfortable environment. After access, we insist that once children get into the classroom, they must have a higher quality education. That means that once we build the schools and put the furniture and get them seated in the school, that the education they receive must be of a higher quality. To that end, we have we believe some of the game changers that we have added to the system would be the expanded teacher training college, and I'd like to give you some stats on that. Prior to 2021, the only way you could train to become a teacher was to physically go to the teacher training college. That means that the hinterland teachers were at a serious disadvantage because they had no college to go to. In some places, they have centers, but they had no college to attend. Um, and let me tell you what that resulted in. In 2019, uh, 32 teachers from the hinterland graduated CPC. In 2019, 32 teachers from the hinterland graduated CPC. In 2023, 188 teachers from the hinterland graduated CPC. That's a 488% increase. Now, what that means is that the classrooms they will stand in front of will have a higher quality, or more likely to have a higher quality education. In 2019, we had 367 graduates in all, hinterland and coastland, for CPC. In 2023, we had 1,796 graduates in all. See the significant rise in number of persons we've been able to train. There was also a specific disadvantage to hinterland students. There's the trained teacher certificate, which is a diploma, sort of a certificate, and there's the associate degree program. If you do the associate degree program, you can go on to do the degree at UG in a shorter time. In 2019, only 56 hinterland teachers were able to do the associate degree program, and only 32 graduated from that. In Currently, we have 1,071 teachers doing the associate degree program because they were always all qualified. They just didn't have the opportunity to do it. Now, what happens when you're trained as a teacher? When you're trained as a teacher, you get a better salary, you have better chances at promotion and leadership in your school, you have more opportunities to go on to do further tertiary training, like on the Gold program. We believe expanding the teacher training college was a game and will be shown to be a game changer in the education system. And so we're very, very proud of this particular achievement. Having said that, we work daily to try to perfect what might be glitches in the system, and there are still those, and we acknowledge them, especially for the persons who are online and trying to connect when when there are problems with the internet or electricity. We understand those glitches, and we're trying to work with community by community to fix them. Only this week, we connected Monkey Mountain, who before now has never been able to train teachers in their village. They all had to come out. Now, what that meant is you had to empty classrooms and leave them without teachers while they came out to Turkine to train. And so we have connected those teachers to our learning platform as well as to the internet. and they are happily in their villages with their own biological children as they teach the village's children training to become trained teachers. Monkey Mountain, as you know, is one of our distant communities where you have to get a specific flight to reach there. We're also going to be building a secondary school there. So I want you to see the vision. By the time that school is finished, we'll have teachers right from the village who are able to teach in that school. So we don't have to take Georgetown teachers or coastland teachers into the village to be able to teach the children there. We also, for quality, expanded our distance education by expanding the Guyana Learning Channel. Uh, Hitherto, the Learning Channel was available only to coastland students and parents and pupils. We have given to hinterland, almost every hinterland community, or 90% of our hinterland communities, satellite, televisions, and solar power, so that they are now able to access everything that the coastland children are able to access. We also added a radio station dedicated to teaching and learning called EduFM on the our distance education program, and we built a website that has all of our resources. And if you were to see, and you'll see it just now, when when they get it up, if you see our the internet, our website has all of the resources that are available to us. So there was a time in this country when you had to have a credit card, uh, or go where you could hop on a plane and go to Trinidad and buy resources. We're no longer doing that. Whatever is available for everybody, and it's available on the um, website once we have copyright for it. We've also added new departments to the ministry. You will see sitting at the head table with me now, Mr. Marty D'Souza. Marty is now the head of the Amerindian and Hinterland Education Development unit. He's also the deputy chief education officer for that unit. Prior to now, we didn't have a specialized um, unit or department dealing with hinterland education, which has peculiar nuances and specific needs and wants. We now have that. We have a whole new assessment unit. We have a school support services unit, which contains career guidance, teacher support, PTA unit, the retention department, migrant unit, and more. We have established an entirely new SEND unit, which has an assistant chief education officer. We have established a national literacy department to look specifically at how we can make all our children literate by grade 4. We have a national education inspectorate, and more than 150 education officers and senior education officers positions were created. The ratio of officers to school have been reduced from 1 to 15 to 1 to 8. Now, you would recall that in my opening, I said, and one of the things we promised in the manifesto was better supervision and monitoring, better monitoring and evaluation. And one of the things we promised in our 5-year plan was more efficiency in the system. To be able to get that, we had to reduce this ratio from 1 to 15, one officer to 15 schools, to now one officer to 8 schools, so that hopefully we could have a better feedback coming out of our system. We are in the process of establishing a leadership academy where school leaders are going to be trained in not only how to be a teacher, but how to be a leader in the school, how to be a principal, how to be a headmaster, headmistress, how to manage that school more than just being what we used to call the head teacher. And we have engaged in continuous professional development for teachers. It's such a popular program where we have teachers continuously trained in the hope that they will develop their skills and methodology, and that will translate into our children's quality education. that we have persons fighting to go on the program. So we have to expand that program even more now. In every other profession, you have mandatory continuous professional development. In the health sector, it's called CMEs, continuing medical education. In law, it's continuing courses. And so in education, we believe it's absolutely necessary. We've also added to the school cash grants where we're giving directly to schools the money to buy whatever schools and classroom teachers money to buy exactly what they think they need in the quantity and at the quality that they need it. So if they need cardboard, chalk, school supplies, the teacher has the autonomy in purchasing what she wants, at what quality, in what quantity. Hitherto, what happened was the regions would buy that. But two things would happen. The regions would have to buy the least expensive, which sometimes is not the best quality, and they'd have to buy it in bulk, and they would take long because of the procurement process. School starts in September. People are getting their supplies sometime in December. So you'd spend 2 3 years without 2 3 months every term without supplies, and we don't want that to happen. The program has been hailed as extremely effective in getting um, supplies into the classroom. Towards quality and support of parents, which was also a promise in the manifesto to support our parents and homes in making sure their children are educated. We have reintroduced the Because We Care cash grant from 2021 to now, $27 billion. $27 billion was allocated to this. So we've placed 27 or close to $27 billion by this year. We would have placed close to $27 billion into the hands of parents that they did not have before this cash grants. I know all parents look forward to it, but I don't think people understand the cumulative effect of this grant. It's really giving back to our parents and the children of this country $27 billion in the 4 year period that we've been there. We are giving to each and every child, and shortly after this, we will be throwing up posters about what every child should have in their book bag. Textbooks that they need. Those textbooks are based on what the school is using. So you may see four titles for English, but a child doesn't have four titles in their book bag because this school is using a particular title. That program, textbooks and exercise books, in the last 3 years has injected $8.2 billion worth into your children's book bags. And and as exercise books for them. The breakfast program has and school feeding program, which again, new program, breakfast across the country, has cost $9.9 billion by the end of this year, where all children across the country in grades 5 and 6 and in the hinterland primary school, as well as his secondary schools in the hinterland, will receive either breakfast, a hot meal, juice and biscuit, or lunch, depending on where they are. We've also added towards quality boats. You would recall when boats and buses. You would recall when the cash grant was abolished by the previous government that they said they were abolishing the cash grant so that they could give breakfast, boats, buses, boots, and bicycles. And if you were to check at, across the country, people, the entire Region 10, nobody got breakfast from the government. Region 10, nobody from Region 2 got breakfast from the government. Nobody from the East Bank got breakfast from the government. We are giving the cash grants plus breakfast. Plus, we have bought more buses and boats in 3 years than the APNU had done in 5 years. And so I just want you to understand the injection into making sure parents and children could access education so that they could avail themselves of the many opportunities we see coming our way. Guidance and counseling officers are also a new feature in the ministry. We have 93 out of 116 of our secondary schools with guidance and counseling officers. And this is a first time thing. We never had that before. 36 out of those 116 secondary schools have two such officers. 23 schools have none, and that's mostly because of where they are and the unavailability of that skill in that area. 20 persons are awaiting appointment from the Teaching Service Commission, which is a constitutional body. So we hope they do those appointments quickly. Once those 20 persons are appointed, 7 new schools will have guidance and counseling officers that they never had before. And 13 schools will have more schools will have two or more guidance and counseling officers. The only region without a guidance and counseling officer in schools is Region 8. And again, that's a function of the unavailability of persons with that skill. So what we have to do is to look to see how we could incentivize the um, guidance and counseling people to go into that region. Teacher welfare. The teachers of this country are precious to us and have benefited from deliberate actions done to make their life and welfare easier. What are those injections, or what are those changes or issues that we've addressed? One, we've corrected all teachers' salary with effect from 2020 at a cost of more than $700 million. We've granted a $10,000 allowance to all teachers with a university degree. And you would recall me telling you earlier that we have more teachers capable of getting a degree now because of the expansion of the teacher training college. We have granted $6,000 as an allowance to all teachers with a postgraduate diploma. We're granting $20,000 in allowance to all teachers with a master's degree. We're granting $30,000 as an allowance to all teachers with a PhD or a doctoral degree. The payment of all graduate teachers at the highest level of their respective scales. The increase in the RAI, that's remote area incentive, from 9,000 to 12,000 per month to 20,000 per month for all hinterland teachers. The provision of more than 3,800 scholarships to teachers, 30% of all teachers. So 30% of all teachers were given a scholarship to qualify themselves. And once they're qualified, they'll earn those allowances I just spoke to in the earlier enumerations. The University of Guyana, after we asked them, opened up their program so that you no longer have to get a release from the ministry to go to UG. All teachers, whoever wishes to train at UG on the education programs, can so train. The reduction of the number of records kept by teachers, such as the removal of the child development index card, the removal of the general scheme of work as a curriculum document, the removal of the annual scheme of work, provision of national schemes of work by the Ministry of Education, the weekly preparation of lesson plans rather than daily lesson plans, all trained teachers being eligible to be a senior assistant master and mistress after 6 years rather than 7, which allows for an additional $20,000 to be added to their salary. The appointment of heads of departments to primary tops, that's the secondary departments in primary schools, which allowed for more teachers to be promoted and so could earn a higher salary. In addition to the continued issuance of 50 duty free um, for teachers per year, plus the granting of a duty free concession to all senior teachers who have 3 years left to serve and have not received a concession previously. So, this was one of the latest things the president did. There was a complaint by teachers that with the 50 duty frees that we would give every year, teachers would end up retiring because we have 2,000 qualified every year. And so he said, we'll still give the 50. But if there's any teacher with 3 years remaining who has not benefited from this program, they will automatically qualify for the program to get a duty free concession. All teachers are provided with termly grants to purchase teaching material that cost us $3.1 billion. Now, teachers said that hitherto they had to spend that money on them on their classrooms. So that means teachers are able to keep $3.1 billion in their pockets because they no longer have to spend it on looking after the classroom. So I just want to get that clear. The last time I said that, somebody said I said the teachers would pocket the cash grant. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if they no longer have to spend their own money on looking after classrooms like buying teacher aids and cardboard and chalk, then they get to keep the money they would have spent on that in their pockets. And given that we're giving $3.1 billion across the teaching force, teaching service, that's what teachers will get to keep in their pockets if they don't have to spend it, assuming that that is what they were spending in the first place. All CPC pre service trainees are now being paid $90,000 or thereabouts rather than a $10,000 stipend, which is what it was when I came here in 2020. The appointment of all teachers who graduated from CPC in 2023 without signing a contract to serve for 3 years post training. That is, teachers were provided with a salary while in training and with free tuition. Number 17, the Ministry of Education requested the Teaching Service Commission and the School Board Secretariat to do 2 senior promotion cycles per year so that more teachers can be promoted and earn a higher salary. A general waiver letter, this is number 18, to allow teachers to travel abroad without collateral, um, also ease the burden of teachers who had to come for a letter to the central ministry. The issuance of one waiver letter to cover the teacher's contracted period was also issued. The holder of a technical teacher certificate um, as being appointed was appointed or are appointed. The holders are appointed as assistant master and mistress. uh, the creation of more senior vacancies in nursery, primary, and secondary schools so that more teachers can be promoted. 2 deputies to large schools, more senior masters and mistresses. That means the persons who are promoted earn a higher salary. A reduction in teaching periods for secondary teachers on a step by step basis. No head teacher is required to do classroom teaching anymore. The assignment of an assistant teacher to senior teachers in primary and nursery schools, the appointment of floating teachers to schools to reduce the workload and substitute for teachers who are absent in a step by step basis, the implementation of the EMIS, which will eliminate many aspects of manual record keeping, an open day policy, which is held centrally and regionally to address teachers' concerns, the appointment and upgrade of all teachers who attended UG without official release and permission before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic, a reduction in number of teaching practice for CPC teachers from 12 to 6, the training of more than 5,500 teachers by 2025 who will all earn a higher salary on graduation, the institution of a digitalized senior promotion process, a simplification in the teacher upgrade process after improved qualifications, the substitution of the head teacher's monthly report with a reduced digital version, a waiver for the issuance of the permanent trained teacher certificate, the placement of guidance and counseling officers in secondary school to assist with the disruptive behavior of students, the continuous placement of data entry clerks in each school to assist with digital record keeping, the introduction of a teacher support unit within the Ministry of Education, the payment for all degree programs completed at UG. Previously, only education programs and a few others were paid for. They were given the allowance. The employment of more than 6,000 new teachers from September 2020 to December 2023, and some policy changes that we have made that um, will ease teachers' burdens are also mentioned there. I know there is a clamor for a higher salary, but I want to make it very clear that when we sat with the union over and over again, all of these items I just listed were items that they themselves said would make their teachers' lives, these 40 items, their teachers' lives better. Marty, could you answer it just to make sure it's not important and tell her if it's not important, it's fine. Um, we have said very clearly that, and the president has said that everybody is going to benefit from the bounty that is ours in this country, but that we have to be patient. But we didn't think that we had to wait for teachers to benefit in their everyday life in the classroom. We didn't think we had to wait for teachers to welfare to get better. And so we worked with the union to bring in these 40 changes that at the time they said were many of them they asked for. Out of the 41 things they asked for, I think we have done 33 because they said those things would make their teachers' lives better. And so we were very glad to be able to do that. Um, right now, we are working on some other system changing, life changing, game changing initiatives. One of which is literacy. We want to make sure all of our children can read by grade four, can read and understand what they're reading by grade four. And so there's going to be some curriculum change in and around that. And that begins in September. As we speak, material is being produced by our literacy unit in collaboration with our materials production department to make sure we can get our children reading and comprehending. One of the initiatives on that is that every primary school is going to have a library with novels and storybooks, something we used to have a long time ago. Well, not every primary school, but some. Um, the storybooks that we all know attract children so that we hope they can become attracted to reading. We're also starting a mathematics intervention that will see, we hope, improved results both at the primary and secondary level. That intervention will include the provision of all textbooks, scientific calculators, geometry sets, graph books, past papers, topic by topic past papers, and an improved and robust training and retraining of the people teaching mathematics, as well as the infusion of distance education in how our children are learning mathematics through the television, through the internet, and through the radio. You're also going to see a robust TVET intervention. You would know that in the country right now, it's the skills that are needed, the heavy duty operators, the masons, the people who are being hired by the construction industry, where they're earning sensibly and adequately to look after families. And so we want to make sure that we are able to cater to that market, that we're able to prepare our students who wish to benefit from that sector. And you're going to see that rolled out in our TVET uh, departments. We also have a large number of migrant children in the country, coming from different countries, in our classrooms that number more than 3,000 in the classrooms. We are and as they came in, our policy in Guyana is no school age child should be denied an education. But as we integrate them into the classrooms, we are crafting programs now to make sure that integration is um, in the best interest of the children. How do we make sure English as a second language is something administered in a sensible, practical way that allows these children to integrate properly with other subjects? And we will roll that out shortly. Um, Violence in school has been an issue we've had to face with and address, not only now, but for a long time. Everybody has a camera now, so we're seeing more of it. But that is also something we are currently looking at to have a holistic program even as we keep it unique to individual schools. So some things will be common, but some things will be different for particular schools. And along our lifelong learning that we said we wanted to promote, you would know that we introduced the Guyana Online Academy of Learning. What we had promised here was an online university on the manifesto, as well as 25,000 scholarships from the government of Guyana in a 5 year period. We have already given more than 25,000 scholarships on the Guyana Online Academy of Learning. And what that is, it's scholarships for people to study, mostly young people, but it didn't have an age limit, to study in foreign universities across the world. So we're currently engaged with 19 universities in a whole host of disciplines where more than 25,000 Guyanese are studying. We're going to have a graduation on the 24th, I believe, or 23rd of May. Um, that uh, allows us to celebrate the persons who've already received their certificates along for PhDs, masters, degrees, and so on. While we were doing goal, we realized there were a couple of people or people who wanted to do tertiary education but didn't have the eligibility criteria required by the various universities, which means they had either dropped out of school or they didn't get their requisite CXCs, or those universities were not taking CXCs. So we introduced GROW, which is the Get Ready for Opportunities to Work. GROW allows students to do the GED, which is the American equivalent of the high school degree, or SCQF, which is the Scottish equivalent of the high school degree. And we have had, I'm happy to say, 5,887 scholarships we offered on GROW. And of those, already 60% of those students that graduated, 3,567, are in universities. So I hope you heard that and you actually cognized it. 3,567 Guyanese people who could not have dreamt of a university education because they didn't have the high school exit qualifications necessary are now in foreign universities pursuing whatever subject they wanted at no cost to themselves because the government is sponsoring that. And so if you look at the board, and I hope they did it um, sensibly, you'll see that almost everything promised in the manifesto. Yesterday, Dr. Ashley Singh announced that University of Guyana students will there's a pathway to a write-off of their student debt. If they were working, they had to have graduated and working in Guyana for at least 3 years, either self-employed or not, with a certain amount of NIS contributions, and they would be eligible for the University of Guyana debt write off, which we expect would be more than 11, which has a potential of being more than $11 billion. And so, if you look at what was promised, you'll see that, assuming that they have highlighted this correctly, because I can't see sideways, you'll see that almost everything that was promised has been delivered. Um, so this needs to be highlighted. This needs to be highlighted. This needs to be highlighted. So those are now this was what we promised in our manifesto. This is where we are now with uh halfway through the 5 year term, and we are very, very pleased to be able to do this. We believe that before 2025, we are going to have um, universal nursery education, universal secondary education, more trained teachers at a higher quality um, of training. We're going to have less hunger, improved attendance, which we're already seeing, better results at the exams, more matriculation, um, lower teacher to student ratio than we've ever seen in the country. And essentially, we believe the sector is moving along the path that has other countries asking us how we've done this or what we're doing in particular areas, and even asking that we share some of our work or our resources with their students, which we're always happy to do. Um, so I'm going to pause here and invite you to ask me or Marty any questions that you might have along any of the things I spoke about or anything else education related.
Um, can Carlos please get the mic? Or get the mic? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen of the media, will follow the protocol. You'll state your name and which media house you're from, and proceed to ask your question. I think Vishani from Newsroom has a question.
Hello, good day. Vishani from the newsroom. A couple of questions from me to start off. I know you touched on teachers in your remarks, but perhaps a more direct comment on the strike and the conciliation happening today. Just your initial comments on the process unfolding, but also if you can speak to perhaps telling us if education has been disrupted and how the ministry has been responding to that. That's my first question. My second question is we've seen comments from the president on his focus on going after defaulting contractors. You've outlined a series of developments, works that need to be done. Has your ministry been issuing any letters or part of the process to issue any letters to any defaulting contractors, and have any sanctions been meted out? On teachers training, the goal is 100% trained or in training by next year. Just a general update on the progress, if you have a percentage on that. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you. Thanks, Vishani. So what are we conciliating about right now? So the Ministry of Education has written to the Ministry of Labor, particularly the Minister of Labor, in accordance and in keeping with the avoidance of disputes or dispute resolutions that we have signed with the union. So we have an agreement with the Guyana Teachers Union that says if you want to avoid disputes or you want to settle disputes, this is how you must do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 is to go to the Ministry of Labor to engage in a process that is called an industrial relations conciliation. What are we conciliating about, or what do we have? What is the deadlock? The deadlock is the union is saying they want salary increases from 2019 to 2023. And the ministry or the government of Guyana is saying we are ready, willing, and happy to engage in discussion on salary increases from 2024 onwards. So the conciliation process is really about the timeline. So what we have a deadlock on. Are you hearing me at the back? Yeah. What we have a deadlock on is the timeline. They're saying they'd like to get salary increases from 2019 to 2023. The government is saying we're ready, able, and willing to discuss salary increases with you and a new multi-year agreement from 2024 onwards. And so we are trying to get the Ministry of Labor to intervene to determine what timeline we should look at. So that's what is happening right now for conciliation. Has education been disrupted? One teacher absent or late from a classroom on any given day causes disruption to the system in the sense of we don't get the full learning we'd like our children to get. During COVID, the world learned that absences from the classroom will result in learning loss and can result in early school leaving, what we call dropouts. Guyana has done remarkably well in stemming dropouts, and that wasn't an easy thing. We're not talking about COVID right now, but when we came in here, we worked day and night to put policies in place to change the system to make sure we didn't suffer the predictions the world was making. That is, that we would have severe learning loss and that we would have a severe dropout rate. And if you look at our stats, you'll see that we have not suffered the way it was predicted. But that didn't happen by accident or by fate. That happened because of deliberate interventions. For example, our NGSA results stayed steady because we consolidated the curriculum. We gave textbooks to everybody. We put videos on the learning channel. We created quizzes on our website. We made the past papers available to everyone. We spoke to teachers and sort of retrained and trained. We did a whole host of things and we kept our results steady. We didn't drop. We didn't see a drop in results. And it's the same thing for CSEC and CAPE. We didn't see any remarkable drops different
Check,
from the
check,
region.
check.
So any teacher who stays away from a classroom will cause some disruption and it will have a negative impact on the system and on our children, and we're always concerned about that. Um, you asked me about contracts. One of the biggest challenges in engaging in what we're engaging in now. So we're about to build, I think, 30 or so, either building or will be building about 30 contractors, 30 secondary schools alone. And you heard me call out a whole set of primary and nursery schools. I say that, and I'm going to make this comparison so you understand the task we're undertaking. From 2015 to 2020, not a single secondary school started and finished. From 2015 to 2020, not a single secondary school started and finished. We are starting and hope to finish more than 30 secondary schools across this country in under 5 years. And we haven't changed out contractors and we haven't changed out what had become a culture. So, yes, we are suffering from people who are crossing over timelines and contractors I'm talking about. And it is a challenge. I personally, with the education team, because I don't meet contractors alone, have been meeting contractors and consultants frequently, once a month, just to make sure we're, sometimes twice a month, just to make sure we're on track and we're not delaying. So far, we have had to write 9 contractors about either their quality or their breaches of timelines, and we have begun the process for liquidated damages in some of those contracts. We've begun the process. It's a process. So I know for sure we've written 9 persons. Right. So right now we have 99% of our teachers trained or in training. So we've always only had, for the last 20 years up to 2020, we've had only about, we've only been able to make like 75, 73, 78%. We've never been able to reach 100%. So right now, as we speak, 99% of our teachers are either trained or they're getting trained. And we'll probably never reach 100 because you have some teachers who started teaching. We will reach 100, but in a few years' time, for this reason. You have a teacher who started teaching when she was 16. She's now 52. I refuse to knock her off or ask her to leave. But if she were to go and get trained, her training will finish after she retires. So there's very small number, particularly in far-flung communities, where we're supporting those teachers, but we're not asking them to get formally trained because for them it doesn't make sense.
Check.
Okay, good morning, Minister and others. Abigail Headley from Starbuck News. I have 4 questions for you, right? I'm going to ask them one at a time to give you time to respond. The first one is, can you confirm the current status of the construction project for Christchurch Secondary and St. George's High, and if it's expected to be completed in time for the upcoming school year? That's the first one.
So could you tell me your latest report on it, Sanji? Right. So I would say yes, in term for your last question, that they're both expected to be completed by for the September opening, both St. George's as well as Christchurch. The current status in terms of percentage of completion, I'll give you that in a minute. We have it written down, but I don't have it on my system.
Okay, well, while we wait for that, the second question, given that the approach of awarding contracts to 7 separate companies rather than one contractor to complete the entire project hasn't been as effective in speeding up the completion as the ministry would have anticipated, will there be a change in plans, or rather will the ministry be returning to hiring just one contractor for future projects?
So I think if it worked the way it was anticipated, if it worked, it would be fantastic because you would have a lot of simultaneous work happening at the same time. So, for example, when you have one contractor and he's doing walls, he can't be doing plumbing. They don't bring on their people at the same time. So, the intention was good to have a lot of simultaneous work happening so that it finishes quicker. And I believe that if we could get that going, that would still be very useful if we could get it going. Take North Rijnveld, for example. Right now, North Rijnveld needs to be repainted. The fence needs to be repainted. The auditorium needs to be repaired, even as we fix the teaching block. And something else needs to be the runway, the driveway needs to be paved. I would prefer 3 persons doing that separately at the same time rather than one contractor. And where that works, so that's a little bit of a simplistic example because this one here, lot 1 had to finish before lot 2 could start. And so wherever lot 1s were delinquent, or let me not use, or did not finish as per contract for whatever reason, they stalled up what lot 2 could do. So it didn't work the way it should. But the question for us as a country is, do we just throw up our hands, or do we insist on a change of culture amongst contractors? And I hope that's what across the sectors we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you. On the topic of gold scholarships, are you aware that the MA psychology students who are enrolled at the IGNU University are currently experiencing difficulties and further delays in their course of study? So much so that they have been unable to submit assignments but marked as fail in the system. This university has been neglecting to respond to students' queries and so forth. There have been many appeals to GOAL, and so far there haven't been much forthcoming responses. And these issues have been going on since the beginning, which was 2021. And so what was supposed to be a 2-year, it's now ongoing with a lot of issues. What is your response to that?
So I'm not aware of the particular issue you raise unless it is the same set of students I had met virtually twice. Is it? You seem very familiar with it. Are you one of those students?
I was.
You were. Right. So did I meet with you virtually? Or your batch?
Yes, you did
I
not do the
did.
batch.
So then I don't want to say I'm not aware. If it's the same program, I am aware of some issues. So let me tell you how this works. Goal is a medium through which the student, John or Mary or you, Abby, gets to the university, whichever university it is, whether it's IGNU or Jane or the Garden in England, Robert Garden, or in Switzerland or wherever it is, we have or USC or UE. So what Goal does is it takes your application and forwards it or allows you to apply directly, and then they work through the issues. So the university is supposed to be answering you directly. And if you're familiar with it, you know that this particular university has given us some trouble. In fact, so much so that we had made an offer to students that if you wanted to leave that university, we were going to see how we could get your credits thus far attained transferred to another university, and a few students opted for that. I believe it is the director's intention um, to either meet and firmly discuss this issue, which he has done several times before. I think there was even talk on the table of not engaging with this university again. Here's the thing: the students love the courses that university offers. So they really like that line of courses and the selection of subjects. It's the students telling us, please don't disengage, just get them to work better. Now, that's a tall order. This is a government run university in India, and they have some of the same problems a lot of government places have. They don't answer the phone after 3 o'clock, they don't answer before 8, they take their own time, they probably get paid whether or not they answer you. And so that's something we have had to cope with. Of course, we are running this program so that you could get qualified. People could get qualified and could have an enjoyable period of study. So this is just as frustrating for us. I will ask Dr. Opade to tell me or update me on where we are with getting a response. I have raised this with representatives of the country, but like I said, it's a university you're dealing with directly. Um, not we're just Goal is just a medium, and the government is paying for it. Two big things, but you are actually engaging with the university directly.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, in terms of the conciliation with the union, is the ministry willing to make a compromise and agree to have salary talks from the year 2021 onwards?
So I think it would be premature and precipitate for me to, while there is a conciliation going on, and it's going on currently, I believe they're still there, for me to say that what we're conciliating about is the timeline. We said something, they said something, and now they're talking about what it could be. So I don't want to be precipitate or premature in saying what we would do or wouldn't do. Let that process happen in an authentic, pure kind of way.
Thank you.
Um, so to answer you, Christchurch, I'm seeing is at 35% overall completed, and St. George is at 75% completed. Um, and we have not done liquidated damages for any contractor, but we have written to 9 contractors. I don't want to say that because sometimes I'm a lawyer, not an engineer. But sometimes what happens is because some of it is prefab off site, you could change from 35 to 80% in a week because you brought your prefab stuff and put it up. I'm not sure what is remaining, so I want to be careful with saying it can't finish for thing. But I'm happy the contractors are seeing that the wider public is interested in how they perform and is insisting that they perform according to contract.
All right, Shumar Musa from the Guyana Chronicle. Minister, you spoke about changes to the curriculum to come in September, but I just want to take you back to mid last year when the president announced that they would like to have compulsory Spanish rolled out in schools, the last update we got from you was that we were engaging our bilateral partners, Cuba, Mexico, to source Spanish teachers. Can you give us an update on how that process has been going and where we are now with that?
So we have rolled out in schools. We have a challenge of staffing. And so this same insert here, the productions unit, has created material that could be used by even non-Spanish speaking teachers to bring us to a place where we are could give basic Spanish instruction. In September coming, all primary school children will have certain Spanish resources in their individual book bags, including a Spanish dictionary, Spanish texts that are age appropriate, and yeah. So the intention of the president, which is to make us a bilingual country, is we're trying to um, meet that intention with the resources we have. Coursera, who we have an engagement that was launched at a stadium, is designing courses for Spanish for all of our teachers. So all of our teachers are going to get training on the Coursera platform to deliver Spanish in their classrooms. Right. And for the first time last year, we offered, so we did NGSA, and because we have such a high migrant population, we offered the students who speak or derive from a Spanish speaking country, Cuba or Venezuela, the ability to write their papers in Spanish. So they could have read it in Spanish and written in English, read in Spanish, written in Spanish, read in English, written in English. They had a variety of options, and we actually saw the children doing a lot better when we offered that humane pathway. So right now that's being marked. The papers are being marked. The marking begins today, and that's a whole section being done again this year.
Hi, me again. Just coming back with two questions. NGSA recently, do you have stats on perhaps how many pupils were absent from the assessment? And as a clarification, you spoke about Monkey Mountain. Where do they go right now for secondary education?
Yeah. So stats, the very, very hopeful and pleasant year. We had less than 450 children absent before we did a reconciliation. What do I mean by that? There are sometimes, if you're going to, and I know this, if you're going to St. Pius Primary and you were registered at St. Pius Primary for the exam, but you left St. Pius Primary and went to Mays or School of the Nation, and you sat the exam there because you didn't tell us that you left our public school, then you would be treated as a walk-in there. And so you weren't absent, you just were absent at this registration center. We didn't do that reconciliation fully as yet, but even without that reconciliation, from COVID to now, this is the best turnout we have had. And I'm very, very, very pleased about that. It means that we had more children interested, more parents aware. The system is picking itself up back after COVID. And that was, I believe, as a direct result of our injection of resources. When you give textbooks, parents can't help but notice those in their children book bags. When you're giving breakfast, you'd be surprised. Well, you may not be surprised if you've been reading international reports on the issue. Where school feeding happens, and I hate that term, but it is what it is. Children come to school specifically for the meals, some kids. And so you're actually able to retain more children in the classroom. The cash grant has a condition attached to it that you had to have been on the register and attending school. So we believe that has thrown up some help us to keep children in the classroom, help us to retain children in the schools. Um, and the ability to use the various other resources might have made children feel less hopeless than they were feeling before. So our statistics on turnout this year has shown us that we've definitely done better as a system, an education system, and I'd really like to keep that up and improve on it, where we see nobody absent. With migration and some illnesses and so on, there's always going to be a small number, but this is the smallest number so far that we've had from COVID to now who've been absent. Monkey Mountain, the children from Monkey Mountain, Tusaning, and Taruka were going to Paramakatoi Secondary, living in a dorm. That dorm is overcrowded as it is. So now, when we build a school at Monkey Mountain with a small dorm, we're going to take off the children. Monkey Mountain children will stay at Monkey Mountain, and the children from Taruka and Tusaning will also come here to Monkey Mountain and go there in the dorms. I want to also say a massive program we've undertaken now that I've mentioned dorms myself. You would know from the Dean and Partners report that there were recommendations made on all the dorms. And we had those fixed by contractors, but we are now engaged in a process where we've asked the same Dean and Partners to go back to all these dorms to see if the fix is as he recommended in terms, and particularly with an eye to safety and comfort for the children.
Hello. Minister, the critic for Daybreak News. One of the parents have just messaged me and asking about Campbellville Secondary School half day. Second form has been having a half day school for about 7 months now. Are you aware of that? And any resolve?
Right, so that might very well be an overcrowding issue that arose out of lack of space in the Georgetown Education District. How are we solving that? We've extended the East Ruimveldt Secondary and St. Winifred Secondary. North Ruimveldt is going to be completed shortly in Christchurch. So with 6 schools down, we had overcrowding and rotations had to happen in some schools, which is not the most desirable place to be, but it was what had to happen in the absence of space in classrooms. And I'm glad you asked, because the commentary that suggests that building a school means nothing. If you don't have places to put children, this is what happens. You may recall that St. Rose's was broken down. Most of St. Rose's, a large part of St. Rose's was demolished sometime in 2017, I think. And it's only last year, after we came back into government, that we put that up. We've extended Queen's College, we've extended the Bishop's High, and we've extended the number of children that could go into St. Stanislaus. So we should see less of the overcrowding, less rotation happening. Campbellville is getting an extension. I believe it's advertised already at $90 million. An extension worth $90 million. Let me just make sure this is one of the advertised schools. Is this advertised?
Yes.
This is already advertised, so we're waiting for that to be open.
Minister, I realize in your this press conference you're using a bit of your female finesse. Are we total, is the Ministry of Education totally oblivious to the political interferences while you're negotiating with the GTU? And what is in mind? Because at sometimes with the negotiation, as you guys make different releases and so on, you realize like there's no way forward. There's always another created. Are you looking at that and thinking of other alternatives to resolve these issues with the Guyana Teachers Union?
The Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education have engaged more times in this administration's term from 2020 to now than any other administration's term, including in my previous iteration there. One of the first bodies we got in touch with after I came back in was the Ghana Teachers Union. And the union, if they want to be honest, will tell you that every step along the way for COVID, for the resumptions, every step along the way we have involved and listened to and heard from the union and had them as active, genuine stakeholders in our processes. I think if you go back to COVID soundings during COVID, what the opposition said was what members of the union said. So when the opposition was saying, oh, we shouldn't go back into schools, certain members of the union said, oh, we shouldn't go back into schools, you'll die, your children will die. Better dead than dunce. Y'all remember that? Check it back in your archives on your Facebook pages, and they were trying to scare parents and children. We came out of that period. I have no doubt in my mind that the opposition elements have no desire, no care for children or teachers of this country. What they would like to do is to destabilize the sector, and as far as they can, destabilize the country. But we've had experience in that. We have some of the best amongst us. And that's not going to happen. We're not going to allow it to happen. I am calling on everyone involved to let sense prevail. Let humanity prevail. We're talking about children's education. Every day lost is a day we cannot get back. Every day lost is a day we cannot get back. And while we will do whatever we have to do in the ministry to try to recover any loss of learning that happens in this period, I am advising that it is better to prevent than to fix afterwards. So there are elements in the Ghana Teachers Union that are leading the conversation and the union astray. And I think that is most unfortunate. I think unions are noble, honorable bodies and organizations set up to look after people who can't look after themselves. And they need to go back to their initial cause in this matter. A union asks for 4 to 1 things, and a government gives 33 of the 4 to 1. I don't think anywhere in the world anyone would say that's unreasonable, including the items given add up to better salaries, whether they be allowances or the ability to keep your money in your pocket after we give you other kinds of resources, the ease in the classroom with what teachers now have. And so, to me, we're not oblivious to it, but we're also not going to fall to it. So when you see us, I've had this happen before. This can't happen, that can't happen. Children are going to fail. We're going to have a lot of dropouts. And we put on our blinkers. We heard, we listened, we filtered out what was sensible and what was not. And we did what we had to do in the ministry. And that's what we intend to do here again. I'm really saddened that up to today, I'm unable to read the judgment that was given. I mean, if it stands, it would indeed be a landmark judgment, not only for Ghana, but for the world, which is quite something. But we have to be able to read it. We have to see what it is this court is saying, so that we can be guided to it. I mean, almost a month later, we can't get a judgment that was read from the bench is really, really quite saddening and worrying for me.
Minister Manichan, finally, you've read out a lot about what is being given to teachers and how the government is reaching out to teachers and even students, and in general trying to make the educational system a better one. The union has a way or a method of reaching teachers directly, having discussions with them and relaying what is the move, what's the plan. Is the ministry reaching out to teachers and ensuring they understand, because you're holding a press conference, but everybody might not have seen it in this form, or news agencies might have created their own atmosphere or put over the message in their form. That again, misguiding some people. Is the ministry working directly with teachers in any case, or planning so, to ensure that they do understand what is the government's intention and not just what the union wants them to think the government's intention is?
Right. We try very hard. We talk on all our various forums, including social media. We meet teachers directly. You might remember that was a complaint of the union that we shouldn't be talking to teachers directly, but only through them. I have a particular concern, and that is that I think teachers are being misled in a way that will harm them personally. If this judgment is overturned, and most people who have dealt with industrial relations believe that it will be. In fact, we think it will be, which is why we're appealing. Then what happens to the teachers who were encouraged to not turn out to issues that will face people at some point, that will face teachers at some point? In fact, this new strike here, is it the same strike that deemed, whether right or wrong, to be legitimate? Because he deemed the first strike to be legitimate, and it's based on that he says salaries couldn't be cut, and we're saying that's a wrong decision. But let's park that for a little bit. Is this the same strike? Because we've engaged all the processes that he had said we should engage. Is this the same strike? I mean, are teachers endangering their own pockets and salaries and well-being when they're encouraged to do this? That's a worry for me, and I hope people are paying attention to that. Look, Mr. Critic, which is how you introduced yourself, the Guyana Teachers Union and the ministry signed an agreement that said we would have a ratio of, in nursery, I think it's 1 to 20. One teacher to 20 students. In primary, I think it's 1 to 25. In secondary, 1 to 30 or 1 to 35. Right now, with the new teachers we've hired, 6,000 between 2020 and 2024, half of which have graduated already, we have a ratio of 1 to 13 instead of 1 to 30. So if I were to say, the union agreed to this in writing that it should be 1 to 30. So let's remove half of these teachers. Then I could immediately double the salary of all those remaining. I say I loosely, the government could double the salary of everybody remaining, but which half is willing to go? And how interested is the union in those kinds of figures, and those kinds of positions, and those kinds of processes of thought? I think the idea that unions have to be in conflict with governments is outdated. I think we have to get to a place where we genuinely hold the view that we're all here for the benefit of the people you represent, and let's find the best pathways towards getting that representation happen. I don't see that salary is everything. I mean, salaries are important, but I don't know that anyone can discount any of the other 33 things we've done, and happily done, and done consciously and conscientiously to make sure teachers have more. That those can be discounted. Prior to now, if you were teaching at school X, only 2 teachers could leave to go to UG, depending on the number on the staff. So you'd have to wait for 4 years till that 2 is finished, then hope that nobody else don't qualify before you. Right now, everybody could go and train. Right now, all of our teachers could go on the Guyana to get degrees and PhDs and masters. 30% of our teachers right now the increased number of teachers, 30% are training further for degrees and masters and PhDs, which means they're going to get a higher pay and they're training for free or at no expense to themselves. It's not free. The government is paying for it. That can't be discounted as nothing. The fact that we give the cash grants to teachers who prior to this said that they had to go into their pockets and spend on chalk and cardboard and teaching aids. Now they don't have to do that. That can't be discounted as nothing. The fact that every teacher will be able to leave the teaching profession with a duty-free concession, which amounts to a couple $1 million, that can't be discounted as nothing. The fact that we're repairing teachers' houses and refurbishing them across the country, so that teachers who go off to teach in the hinterland could be comfortably accommodated, that can't be discounted for nothing. The fact that the classrooms are smaller, you have less papers to mark, more children to, more time to dedicate to individual children, that can't be discounted as nothing. That would fulfill a teacher's calling. So I don't believe that a fair consideration of what has happened has been had by the beneficiaries in a way that is mature on the issue that is currently before us.
Minister Saskia Warwick, NCN. Minister, the GTU has said that many teachers are already taking up international opportunities that could really affect the upcoming school term. Is the ministry concerned at this point, and are there any alternative measures in the pipeline to address this issue if it is indeed true?
So Saskia, that's the premise of the question is wrong. We don't have in our records teachers leaving in droves or drones, as was said at one point, or at all. We see the same number of teachers leaving the system either in retirement or unfortunately death or migration, but we're not seeing any large numbers. In fact, we have 6,000 more teachers in the system. When we came in here, we had 10,000 teachers. We now have 14,000 teachers with 2,000 training more. So we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing persons coming to the profession where before they weren't that interested. And the reason for that is because, you know, when the APNU left office, a trainee teacher was getting $10,000 a month. That trainee teacher is now getting $90,000 or thereabouts as a salary per month, right? The trained teacher's salary is higher than the insurance intake person's salary. So in my time, and I'm old, in my time, children who came from homes who needed financial support to look after the younger ones. So I went off to university. There are classmates who couldn't go to university. They had to go and work because they needed to help out at home. And we all know those families. The choice places was the bank and the insurance companies, because that's what paid well at entry level. The teaching profession, as far as I understand it, is competing with that right now. So people are choosing to give themselves a career rather than a hold-on job just to get some money, because that the career, the beginning of the career, the training period of the career is also paying. So those are we have no reason to worry that teachers are leaving, because that's not happening. And that's why I ask you, when you hear from these usual suspects, you have to question, not only you at NCN, but the nation needs to question the veracity, the truth of what is being said.
In addition to that, so Minister did mention that we are going to be building out a number of new secondary schools across the country. So one would want to think, how are we going to be staffing them? So right away, we can imagine that there will be an avenue for employment. A number of persons would have to be trained so that these schools can be fully staffed. So we are heading in a direction We are conscious that we will need to employ new teachers in some cases. So I can tell you that quite a number of applications would come to me, for example, that they want to get into the profession, but they cannot at this time because the school may be filled. But there are persons who are very much willing to join the profession. And that is something we are comfortable with, knowing that we're going to be opening a number of schools and that the market is available. So once we have these schools, we are almost guaranteed that we will have a number of new teachers who can come in. And of course, we will be training them all.
To your question, Mr. Curtix. Minister, we have a question from one of our media operatives online. Nazima Raghavir from Prime News is asking for an update on the school for Mycobie. She's asking if it's still in the works and if there's a timeline for it.
Right. So, Nazima, thanks for your question. You obviously came on late because I actually said from the very beginning that Mycobie was one of the schools we are building. I believe it is advertised already, and we're waiting on the. It's advertised and it's going to be opened shortly. So we're waiting for that to happen. It's a open bid process in accordance with the procurement laws.
Minister, I think we're close to the end. You've been very professional in how you're putting forward what the government has done, and fairly so being the minister. As a parent and a mother, would you use this opportunity to make, not as a minister, but again as a parent, a personal plea to teachers for the betterment of the students of this country, for the teachers to understand the importance of the role they play? Can you use this opportunity to make a personal plea? If that would be of any consolation and shows a different side, being a parent and a mother, if that shows a different side, maybe that could bring about some change in people realizing the importance of this.
So I think, critic, two pleas I'll make. One, I have seen teachers. First of all, I come from a family of teachers. So my mother, her sisters, my grandfather, his brothers, my mother's cousins, they're all teachers, trained teachers from the Teachers Training College. And those who've migrated and gone to Canada, so they're teaching there. So I come from a family of teachers. And I know the sacrifices teachers make and how precious their work is. And we know that we can't get anything really in the system without teachers who are the backbone, which is why we've gone to such great lengths to make sure we can do so much in such a short period. And like I said, I read out 40-something things that we did consciously to make the lives of teachers better, because we know that we could do those things. President Ali has been very clear that everybody is going to benefit in this country from the bounty that is ours in our natural resources. He's been very, very clear about that. But he's also been very clear that he has to manage prudently and carefully. And I want to say this to teachers. In 1992, when we came into government, we were paying most of our money in debt. 98 cents on every dollar we were paying towards debt. And the same people now who are asking you to have a little bit of patience and just wait for us are the people who moved that Guyana, where we were a heavily indebted poor country, HIPIC, they used to call us, and paying 98 cents on the dollar in debt, and the second poorest country in the hemisphere. Prudent management saw us moving into a middle income country, and then a high income country, and now the highest income in the world. Those same people who didn't have money made sure every pensioner could get pensions, rather than the people before that who were saying it had to be means tested. Those same people started up the housing ministry, which was closed down. Those same people, without any oil money, moved from one secondary school in the hinterland to 14 secondary schools in the hinterland. I'm saying that to say these people have had experience and have kept their word in moving the nation equitably forward and upward. Those people are the people who are in government right now. Their entire ethos, that party's entire ethos, has been to work to move Guyana and all of Guyana, whether you're from the hinterland or the quarantine or a rice farmer or a teacher, up the scale from a heavily indebted poor country to the highest earning country in the world. And so when the president says to us, and the vice president, who is the CEO, says to us that, and the vice president, who is also the general secretary, who is committed to making sure these manifesto promises are implemented, when they say to us that everybody is going to benefit, we just have to do this prudently in a way that we don't overextend ourselves where everybody punishes. I trust them. And I'm asking teachers to trust them based on their history, based on the history I just outlined. But I will also ask parents to do this. We have an enormous amount of resources that are free to you. We have the Guyana Learning Channel, where we have booster videos for grades 5 and 6, where every topic is done in a video form, as though there's a teacher in front of the classroom. We have all our textbooks online. We have all our past papers online. We have the radio disseminating education. We have given your children textbooks. So I'm also asking parents, you don't have to be able to read and write. Just make sure your children are using those resources. And you can help us in this period to make sure your children's learning is not interrupted. And they're very well organized on these various forums. So the plea is also to parents to make sure that you step in here and help your children continue their learning using the very many resources that we have and towards which the world is going. So we're going to a different place in the world. It's not fully face-to-face anymore. There's a heavy infusion of technology in teaching and learning. And this is as good a time as any to get your children on that trajectory, because at some point in their lives, they are going to be met with that.
Are there any more questions from the media? Okay. With that, that brings our press conference to a close. Thank you so much for joining us.